I love that you say the struggle is real, but so is your greatness.
Uh-huh.
My mentor told me his name, Cecil Cheeves. He was the race director for the first marathon I ever ran, the Soldier Marathon in Columbus, Georgia. He said the the struggle. He didn't say struggle is real, but based on a caveat to that, the struggle is real. But he said the story is in the struggle.
Welcome to the Greatness Ignited podcast, where we have conversations about the greatness of others so that you can recognize the greatness in you. My name is Barry Overton, and I have been studying greatness for the last 7 years, and it is taking my career to new heights. And now me and a few of the successful people that I have had the honor of interviewing are coming together to ignite your greatness and light the fire within.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Greatness Ignited. We're having those discussions in regards to the greatness in others so that you can realize the greatness in you. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have a diamond for you. This is going to be a fun interview. This is someone that I was able to meet about a year and a half ago and has truly just done some amazing things in her life. And I think you are truly going to be inspired by her story. And just to give you a little bit of background on her, she has a background where she played college softball, and she's a former bodybuilder in the fitness category. She's ran in ultra marathon. She's been an Ironman competitor where she actually finished the Ironman competition. Along with that, she's been in pageants, and she'll share more with you about that. But again, in regards to being Miss Colorado and Mrs. Colorado, and also currently a captain in the U.S. Army. In my book, I do a chapter solely on her, and I call her Captain Greatness. And I guarantee you, after you have met her, you will call her that too. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Miss Captain Angela Dimattia. How are you doing, Angela?
I'm great, Barry. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, great. And it's great to have you here. And like I said, with that intro for me, meeting you, I always say that everything happens for a reason. We met at an event that I was almost not going to show up for, but when I showed up for it, I knew why I was there, and it was to meet you and to be able to build a friendship that we've been able to over the last year and a half, but more importantly, to be able to learn more about you and be able to share your story with the masses, which has always just been it's so great when we're able to get together and have these conversations.
I know it's funny. I was actually filling in for a friend of mine that day, Sylvia Waller, who was my predecessor in the pageant
Wow.
for the state of Colorado. She couldn't make it, so I filled in for her, so there wouldn't be an empty spot. Yeah, it's serendipitous. So it was great. I mean, I never would have thought. Fast forward, here we are today, and
Yeah,
developed the friendship, and celebrating your success in the book, and it's been a very interesting ride and a very very special friendship in my life. So
yeah, absolutely. That's the first time I knew about you filling in. So that even makes it even more of a surreal moment.
yeah.
And speaking of which, I mean, it takes me to a Steve Jobs quote where he talks about being able to connect the dots in life. And he said that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards, but you must trust that in the future, the dots will connect. And
Mm.
when you look back on your life, and as I've been able to share your story in my book, you can see all the dots connecting to the point where you are right now in life. And we're going to talk about that. Again, someone that, again, I identify as Captain Greatness and as a captain in the U.S. Army, but this captain was once a little girl in Phoenix City, Alabama. And, again, I think people are always intrigued to see, the success that people have, but it's even more intriguing for me when we can go back and tell the story of the humble beginnings. So, what was it like growing up in Phoenix City for you?
Well, it had ups and downs. I The good parts, I say, we had a lot of woods in the back of our house to play in. So that was my world. And I really do think that me joining the Army today, I'm not meaning to skip ahead in our planning conversations, but one of the things about me being in the Army was I felt like I was a kid again. I mean, we get to play in the woods, which some people have never stepped foot in the woods in their entire life. I was like, I had forts built and, climbed every tree. And so that was a lot of really good memories. But we were very underprivileged, very poor. My family in particular. Where I am now, I didn't realize how poor we were. Now I know. And then I say I didn't realize in the beginning as I started school, and I would go and spend the night at my friends' houses and stuff. I realized that where I lived was very different, and there might have been 400 square feet in the house that we grew up in, and holes in the floor, and sometimes water didn't work correctly, and it was a lot. And I tell the story. I mean, I have a lot of like very distinct memories here and there, but we had we would have animals come into the house or the trailer through the holes in the floor.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It was we had just a piece of plywood and a rug over it. That's what covered the hole. And now I would never, I mean, looking back, I'm like, if I found a kid living in those conditions, I'm like, call the police. I'm surprised we wouldn't take it away. But I mean, we loved our parents. It was just our reality. That's just where we were.
Yeah, and I know we've had some conversation where you've talked about the illness that your mom had, and again, this was very early on in life that you just realized that your mom was dealing with a particular illness that so many people have dealt with in this country. But again, that was something early on you recognized.
Yeah, I'm at the age now where my mom was when she found out she had type 1 diabetes, and she was 37. So finding out at 37, most people are like, yeah, that's kind of late in life. You usually find out a little bit before. So my whole life, I was 2 years old when she found out. So my entire life, I watched her body give up on her slowly but surely. For those of the listeners that don't know a ton about diabetes, you don't get sick of diabetes. You don't pass away from the disease itself. You pass away from the complications that it just wreaks havoc on the other organs in your body. So I watched slowly, her life over the course. I mean, I don't have many memories of her healthy, like clips of, of days when she felt good. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. It definitely made me who I am today, is watching that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember in the book we talked about a story of your mom coming to you at 5 years old. Again, growing up in a impoverished situation, and just thinking about the future in regards to college and things. And this is probably one of my favorite stories in my book, because it's a message that so many people have probably experienced in their own lives. You want to just share a little bit of that?
Yeah, I started playing ball. I have an older sister, and it's just two of us. I was her back girl for her team, and I would get so happy running out and getting the bat. I loved softball. I loved it. And in Georgia, we had 1996 was the Olympics came to Atlanta. And we knew that the Olympics was going to be in Atlanta 4 years before that, right? So, because it takes a while to prepare. Anyways, when I was a kid, I found out that the Olympics was coming to Georgia, and that the softball was going to be played in Columbus. And that was our hometown, Phoenix City, Columbus. It's right there on the state border. We were 10 minutes away from where the softball, I mean, my life just, it was a pretty big event. I mean, that's huge. Like, when does that ever happen to a kid? I mean, I haven't really thought about that honestly until like the last few years, and I realized like that might have been one of the biggest impacts. But anyway, so I think that's what maybe triggered this conversation with my mom. It was like, are we going to go watch the games? And we did. And she saw this, like how it really lit me up. And she said, if you really love this sport, if you work hard, it can pay for your college. And she said, because we're not going to pay for it. And I don't know if she knew what that would do to me. I mean, at the time I was like, we have a long time, Mom, like you can save a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But she was preparing me. So not many 5-year-olds think about how they're going to go to college, but that statement told me a couple things from her that day. It told me that furthering my education wasn't an option. It was going to happen. She wasn't like, if you decide to go to college, softball could pay for it if you work hard. She said, this could pay for your college. Like, as if like, you better start thinking about how you're paying for college now. And it isn't whether or not you're going, So that was a strange way of, just putting college on my radar. I think some of my friends hadn't considered it until like our senior year. And in my mind, I'm like, I've been planning this for the last 15 years,
Yeah.
So, I mean, she was letting me know. And then I did. I knew then that I was going to do what it took to get a scholarship. I didn't know how. And I spent a lot of time in the yard doing drills into a fence and hit our shed quite a few times. I think our shed out back in my parents' place still has some pretty significant dents in it.
Yeah. And that for me is, I can relate to that because I remember, I always talk about dreaming, and as kids, we dream without limitations. And it's as we get older and we have people in our lives, sometimes family members, and they're not doing it to be facetious, but they're doing it because they think they're preparing us for reality, where they will try and dilute our dreams and tell us, well, that there's not a great chance of something like that happening. And for me, there was always a dream, and it was always pretty grand. And I think, again, at 5 years old, here it was that you had this dream and you held on to it throughout, your teen years and getting prepared for college. And all of a sudden it comes to fruition, and you're a college softball pitcher. And I know that you've shared a story with me in regards to, again, there were some great games that you had as a college softball pitcher, but one that really made an impact on you was not so great.
Yeah, I want to answer that, but I just kind of want to caveat based on what you said. I don't know if I'd ever really thought about it, is when we're innocent and we have these dreams without limitations, it's like, we've never had a dream broken. We've never had our heart broken.
Yeah.
At least I hope not. At a young age, we don't really know the difference. I didn't realize how poor we were, what kind of situation we were in. And so I had these dreams. And so when life did get thrown at me, and I did grow up and realize, wow, like I got work to do. I mean, that dream was already planted in my mind.
Yeah.
I used to look back at that and think that me thinking about that so young in some ways took away from my childhood, because that's a big burden, I think, for a 5-year-old to think about finances. And to at least looking back, at first I was like, wow, I lost, I had to grow up quick because I had to take care of my mom. I had to take care of myself in a lot of ways, but that dream helped me when things got really rough. So thank you for sharing that. I think that was a really good way of putting a positive spin on that.
Yeah.
The same way that leads us to this game. We spoke earlier, and I said I never thought that one of my worst games would be the one I had talk about the most. Is this? you know, I have a lot of great games. I have a lot of games where I set PRs on the speed and, you know, had my first successful, you know, rise ball and stuff. And this one game, I couldn't throw a strike if my life depended on it. It was so bad. And if you've ever watched a game where bases are loaded and the pitcher walks a batter and like walks a runner into home,
Uh-huh.
that is the worst thing that you could do, you know. And this was early on in my college career, and I like look at the coach, and he's like, "Nope, you better fight your way out of this." I mean, I think he had accepted that we were going to lose. We were going to lose the game. That wasn't the question anymore. And I was so mad. I hated him because when
Yeah.
you're a pitcher, man, all eyes are on you,
Yeah.
and you know, with every pitch, your work is determined in front of the whole crowd right there, ball or strike. And every single ball you throw is like failure in a crowd. And sometimes balls are intentional, but that's when you throw a bunch of strikes, you intentionally throw a
Yeah.
ball on occasion. Um, and then, you know, when I did throw a strike, I think it was a sympathy strike. I think the umpire was like, this poor girl, I'm gonna give her the strike right now. But now, now that I'm over it halfway, I can look back and say, you know, Coach, that it was a great metaphor for life, because you can't just get pulled out of life. You know, you're not gonna. Nobody has this lifeline to put you on the bench, and you can't have someone step in to your life and pitch for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you don't always have a team behind you. Honestly, I mean, unfortunately, in life, you know, you have your family and your inner circle of friends. And God, if you have a team, a life team of 5 people, then you're really blessed. You know, people who really, really want to help you succeed. And so, um, I look back and I'm grateful for that. You know, I fought through it. We lost, but I wasn't replaced. My team still loved me, and you know, I go away. I wish I could look back at the stats and, you know, like relive the game through the game book and find out how many people I walked into home. There was more than one, I promise.
Yeah. You know, and I started with the interview talking about the Steve Jobs quote and being able to connect the dots. And see, right here, just up to college, you know, we were able to connect this dot of being able to experience the Olympics and the softball aspect of it being so close to home for you. And here it is, you know, years later that you're playing softball. And then in college, I think you majored, was it in fitness or, but I know that you shared in regards to your major, it was because of the experiences that from a health aspect that you saw your mom go through, that you wanted to go to school and be able to learn more in regards to fitness and the body and nutrition.
Yeah, my degree's in exercise science. A lot of it physiology based. So um, the acute changes and chronic adaptations to exercise, and the course throughout the courses in the degree, it's very anatomy, biology, chemistry. Um, very similar to a nursing path. And then when nurses break to go do their clinicals, exercise phys students break and go to the lab. And then that's where we get kinesiology and our physiology under our belt. Kinesiology being the way the body moves, and like I said, physiology being the adaptations to exercise. And I say you're going to have good adaptations or bad adaptations. And I had a doctor tell me once, my mom was from diabetes. She eventually suffered some kidney failure. And I'd looked into giving her my kidney, and the doctor said, you know, it's harder on the people who lose the kidney than it is on the person that gets the kidney.
Huh.
And he said, you know, your mom made some tough decisions in her life. And I had never, no one had ever said that to me. I was kind of offended. I was like, what do you mean? Like, she asked for this? And I don't think that was the case completely. But, you know, now that I'm 35 and I have friends, like we're at an age where like, oh yeah, our decisions do determine, how we take care of our bodies every single day, what we put in our mouths, how, who we surround ourselves, like all these things really do play into our health. And so,
Yeah.
I don't think she necessarily wanted that. Sometimes we wake up and we're like, oh dang, maybe I need to put down smoking. Maybe I need to, start watching what I eat more, because we have this like wake up call to our health.
Yeah.
So yeah, without getting into that, but she, yeah, I just realized that if I really wanted to learn about the body and how to take care of myself, and maybe even try to understand more of why and how she's sick, exercise physiology was a course or a path in college that I knew would keep my attention and make me very enthusiastic to go to school. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before in our conversations, but I was told that I had a attention deficit, so ADD, ADHD, inattentive type 2. I was diagnosed with that, and I didn't really know what that meant. And so I remember the doctor saying, you just take this down to disability services and you can get like different things, audiobooks for your textbooks and extra time on tests. And I was like, disability services, like a learning disability? And they're like, yeah, I mean, I thought I was smart. At least I thought I was. But anyways, I knew college was, I worked hard. I joke, I say, I worked hard for my A's and B's and C's. There's some C's I really busted my tail for. But, I know I needed to select a major that could keep my attention. So that was something that I chose to go with. I'm glad I did. I apply it every single day.
Yeah.
Things like that. Mm.
Yeah, and again, once again, that's one of those areas of, again, experience the health issues with your mom took you to a place where you wanted to, study this, and now, just like you said, you apply it every day. And as you get into your 80s and 90s, you'll probably think to yourself, "Man, I'm glad I made those," as you mentioned, made those decisions along the way that it helped me to get to where I'm at now. And I agree with what you say about decisions, because it's like once we start to set goals and we know what our purpose is and our calling, every decision that we make usually is around that purpose. And it really kind of allows us to make the right decisions. I can tell you a big part of what I do right now with my businesses, with the book, the speaking right now, everything is about branding for me. And one of the first questions I ask myself, I get approached about business opportunities and different events to attend. And it all comes down to, is this in alignment with my brand? Is this in alignment with my purpose? And there's a lot of things that I have to say no to because they're not in alignment. So yeah, I definitely, and once again, this is something that I think you started with at 5, and not even really knowing that you're following this principle. It's just a part of your life now.
Yeah, that's a really powerful concept, what you just described, that I think, God, I mean, I have failed at this miserably at times. You try to help too many people, you don't want to say no because of something, but man, the power of no, the power of knowing that I have 24 hours and I can only do so much, and I am working as hard as I can, that I can't waste time. Like I say, you can invest money and you can get money back,
Uh-huh.
but if you invest time in someone, you're not ever getting that back. That is for that person. And
Yeah.
so you have to be very picky about the time that you have. Yeah, that's a really great concept. I think I read a book called Essentialism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this author's last name properly, but it's Greg McGowan, I believe. And he goes down this rabbit hole of what is essential, trying to differentiate what is most important in your life. And sometimes that's hard to do. I say, you know, I have in life right now, we juggle so many things. We have work, we have money. Sometimes that isn't the same two things. You know, sometimes you do a job because you love it, not necessarily because you make the most money at it. And then you have family, you have spouse, children, God, all somewhere in most people's category of that. And that, like, you have to juggle it. So whenever you come into a decision point in your life, I'm doing Army terminology now, decision point. You have to say, okay, does this align with my actual priority list? You know, people are like, you check your priorities. Well, like, you need a priority list. I think if people were to actually make a priority list, then that would answer their question of whether or not they should go into these business opportunities. You know, you're like, well, right now that doesn't align with my list of priorities. Yeah, and being true to yourself, you know, and setting those boundaries, like that principle alone will save people's lives. I swear.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, and so as you know, once you graduated from college, I know that you were doing the bodybuilding and you started doing the ultra marathons and the Ironman competition. A story you actually shared with me just a few minutes ago is, man, such a powerful lesson in it. I would love for you to just share with the audience, just in regards to, you know, again, the statement that you made is, sometimes it rains on race day, and that can never be more true just in life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd played college ball, and anyone that's ever played a collegiate sport, you know, I mean, you are training, it's hours a day. Sometimes, I mean, 5 hours at minimum when it comes to workout on the field, clean up line. Anyways, so I started work and I put on some weight, and I just wasn't doing the same amount of physical exercise. And I was like, this isn't me. You know, I got to get back to sports, you know, and I have to be true to myself. I really missed it. So I was like, what are some individual sports to play? And, you know, I started running and got into triathlons, and I trained up with a friend for the Sneakers Marathon. And this was, I want to say early 2010, 2011, I think. And just to kind of explain this to the listeners, there are more, at least this was 10 years ago. Okay. You know, marathons could have changed 10 years, but back then, the Sneakers Marathon qualified more people for the Boston Marathon than any other marathon. And so this is a big race. And the day of the race comes, and marathons will say, you know, rain or shine, this race is happening, you know.
Yeah.
Because people training, you know, they have a method, and they peak on race day. So anyways, it is a monsoon. It is, you know, Southern Georgia, when it rains, you know, like Forrest Gump said, like big old fat rain. It was a splashing mud puddle every single step of that 26.2 miles. And it was torture. And the look on everyone's face, I mean, we are just drenched. And when you're that wet, you know, your shorts do weird things. You chafe in weird places. And for women, you know, our bra, like it was miserable. It was like the worst 26.2 miles I ever painfully endured. But I learned, looking back, you know, you do in military, we say an AAR. I look back and I want to say, how do I review this situation and make take away the good lessons? And I said, I wasn't prepared for rain. I don't think anyone was prepared for that kind of storm, because, and anyone that's run marathons, there are people today that still talk about this awful race. And they're like, yes, I know what Snickers Marathon you're talking about. I said, if I was out running, you know, you had long runs that lasted a few hours in preparation for the marathon. And if you get caught in a little rainstorm while you're already running, then you just kind of accept it. There's not much you can do. You know, you're like 5, 6, 7 miles or more away from your house. But when it's raining already, before you leave, you always look at the weather and you're like, oh, maybe I'll run tomorrow. You know, because getting out in the rain when everything's comfortable inside that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And I learned that most of the time in life, you have a little bit of a rainstorm in one way or another, whether, it's just as part of growing up, it's part of becoming a better person each day. And, whether you still working in your job, like when is the best time to have kids? When's the best time to get married? Like, I don't know. Sometimes life is going to happen. There isn't the best time, but I learned that when it comes to running races, just because it might rain on race day, you better get out in the rain because the sun isn't always going to clear up when it's convenient for you.
Yeah.
And, people in the Army say, if it ain't raining, we ain't training, you just have to soak it up. Like, honestly, the more comfortable you become, still making headway towards your goals during life's storms, then what can ever stop you? If I can learn to run in the rain, then guess what? On race day, if my main competitor over here didn't train right, then like I'm at the advantage and the biggest disadvantage that there is. And I think, like when we talk about life, people who had a lot of adversity in their childhood, there might have been aspects of my childhood that were taken away. There might have been parts of me that matured late, because where other people had the freedom to maybe mature in social skills or mature, and empathy in other ways. Like I was on survival mode in very important developmental years. And so that I think allowed me to be successful in a lot of different ways because I had tools in my toolkit that prepared me for life. And so when I got to college and I was eating ramen, some people this was hitting them for the first time, they're like, oh, man, I'm poor. And I'm like, well, welcome.
Yeah.
I don't know, juggling college and work and a sport was hard, so sometimes those obstacles really prepare you for a lot of things where you can excel when other people are learning. They're like, oh, okay, like they're at the point where they're just now having to figure it out, and they're making mistakes where I was like, I already have this down, I
Yeah.
think that really helped.
Yeah, and you make a very good point. And there's that old saying that you have to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable. And I think that story about the rain applies so well to life, because many people will set goals and dreams and aspirations, but they're in a holding pattern because they're waiting for everything to line up. They want the sunshine to be out and the perfect weather conditions before they step into that dream and really pursue their greatness. And life really just it isn't like that. And one of the things I've always talked about, I have a saying, and it's in the book. I start the book with this, and I say the struggle is real, but so is your greatness. And I say that because we hear all the time people, they're going through something and they'll say the struggle is real. It's almost a meme out there of the struggle is real. But we don't believe when someone says there's greatness in you, we have trouble accepting that and believing that there's greatness in us. But it's through the struggle that the greatness comes out in many cases. I'm sure when you're running 26.2 in a monsoon, and you get to the end, you realize, okay, I've just done something amazing here. And people around you that witness this are like, wow. And it's the same thing in life, that when we're going through the struggle and most people want to stop, and most people, they can't weather the storm that they're going through, and they want to stop, but they keep pursuing it and they get through it. When you get to the end of it, you realize that you've done something pretty special.
And you thank God that you didn't quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like looking at cars driving by. And I was like, I am this close to hopping in this car and being done with this race.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh God, I can't. You just can't do that. And I think I had a mentor tell me, I love that you say the struggle is real, but so is your greatness.
Uh-huh.
My mentor told me, his name Cecil Cheeves, he was the race director for the first marathon I ever ran, the Soldier Marathon in Columbus, Georgia. He said the struggle, he didn't say struggle is real, but basically, on a caveat to that, the struggle is real, but he said the story is in the struggle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, when we have these movies that are made of these phenomenal sports teams, like they're always the underdog. They always had this like awful, losing record and injuries and all, these things. And that's what makes for the best stories. When you talk about this race or you talk about the game, you talk about the worst game that you had, and you talk about the worst race that you had. And the story is in the struggle. And sometimes you can lose faith because you're like, well, I'm struggling in every category right now. So it would be great to be able to look back on that, and I promise you, like, if you just make it through the storm, storms cannot last forever.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
They have to stop. A storm will stop. And even along that in the book from John Maxwell, he's explaining that if you're not in a storm right now, then just wait, because one's coming. So savor the moment. So like you just have to be prepared. I think that was it.
Yeah. One of my mentors, Les Brown, always says that, you're either in a storm, coming out of a storm, or on your way to a storm.
Yep, exactly.
So we have to embrace that, that is a part of life. And the quicker we can do that and accept it and realize that, just like you said, every storm will come to an end. And it's the lessons that we learn while going through it and the person that we become and we evolve to, that is really what we should, be looking at going through that process.
And if some people are in a storm, this is, if there is ever one thing that I say that I personally have learned recently in my life is, if you're in a storm and you have people that are judging you for who you are or what you're having to learn while you're in a storm, then don't worry. You are not who you are forever, right?
Yeah.
You're not defined by a mistake or a point in your life where you did what you had to do. If you have to work multiple jobs and you're like, hey, I can't be there, and you miss things that are important in life because you're trying to survive. It's like, you are working towards, like, know who you are, know in your mind the person that you want to become, and do what you have to do to get there. And it's like, and know that it isn't forever. And who you are in the storm, if you made a mistake along the way and you learned that lesson, then apply it and don't forget it when that storm ends. Like, don't cause your own storms, I guess is what, that's how and that this is a temporary thing. Journaling a lot, and I can imagine, even you with writing your book, I journaled a lot, and I'm so glad that I did. I have over 20 years of journaling. I can look back at what my mind was thinking at 14 years old, and I was angry. I was an angry little teenager back then, but man, I'm glad that I learned that I can journey back and kind of remember those lessons.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Yeah, and then and I'm sure over the course of probably the last 10 years, there's been some amazing lessons. Now, again, I think it's the is it USOA?
Yeah, United States of America.
Yeah, and you've been a pageant winner as Miss Colorado and Mrs. Colorado. You decided to join the Army, and now you're a U.S. captain, and just working in a field that you really love. So in essence, once again, the person from the outside looking in and looking at the last, say, 7 to 10 years, they probably think all these things have just lined up, but it's really the work that happened at 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, that has got you to the point where you're at today. But let's talk about where, you know, some of the pageants, and what made you decide to go into the pageantry, going from bodybuilding into pageantry.
Whew. Well, I is a long story. We had mentioned the military, so I'm going to kind of tell you a little story back here, and then I promise I'll lead up. If my ADD takes me down another road, kind of reel me back in, okay?
All right.
So I come from a military family. My parents were both in the Navy. My grandpa was a retired first sergeant from regiment down. That's why we were in Columbus, Phoenix City. I started to run. Like I said, I wanted to get back into sports again after college. I ran this marathon. It was the inaugural race of the Soldier Marathon. And then I started volunteering for that race. It was such an amazing experience. And I was like, I need to be around people like this. It was all volunteers that put on the race. And they all loved to run. And I was getting really into that scene. So I met the mentor that I mentioned earlier that said the stories in the struggle. And he was the director for that race. He brought me on, and I became the fallen hero coordinator for that race. And I learned about a Gold Star family, or what a Gold Star family was. For the listeners that don't know, it is a family or a spouse and children that are left behind after a service member passes away in duty. And so we call them Gold Star families. And so we would highlight the Gold Star family members along the race a little bit differently. We had special bibs for them, and people could call in and pre-order bibs, or on race day, I had a whole table full of fallen heroes that if someone didn't have someone, they could run in honor of that service member and learn their story. So I had a picture, a little story about who they were, where they were from, and how they died. And I fell in love with that so much. And I think it was a couple years in, I had a family come. We had like 13 bibs printed for the same fallen hero. And when family came and picked it up, I realized, like, you can see it on TV. I'm looking and I'm doing the research on these heroes, and I know that they're real, but when the family was in front of me, like, it got real.
Yeah.
And they were thanking me for making bibs of their family member. And I'm like, don't thank me, please. It is not me. This is, we all owe everything we have to families like you. And so, like, you can see, like, it was really emotional, and it hit me really hard. And so I said, I have got to learn more about this. I looked back in my journals. We're connecting the dots. I looked back in my journals and realized that I had been writing and thinking about joining the military for about 5 years at that time.
Wow.
I know. So instead of going to other people who I think know me, I use my journals to give me, if I have a decision I need to make, I look at my journals, and that way I can trust myself, And so I said, well, I guess that's my sign.
Yeah.
So I decided to serve. I had to know what that kind of love and passion was like. I had to know what that team was like. I mean, like I said, I missed being on a team. And I really felt like there's a lot of ceremonial things in the military that are really beautiful, that they work really hard to maintain and not lose. So fast forward, I get stationed in Colorado, and I had been doing that for the Soldier Marathon for so many years. I didn't want to stop volunteering in that way.
Yeah.
And I competed in bodybuilding, and I enjoy it. It keeps me fit. I learn a lot about my body, especially as we age. Our body just isn't what it used to be. Performance sports kind of go down a little bit, like you get a little slower after a while. And so bodybuilding was nice because I could train around injuries and then still be super fit. And I learned how to eat right, which was really important. I thought I was eating right before, and I wasn't. I wasn't eating enough. It really takes a lot of food, believe it or not, to be fit. So anyways, I maintained that theory of volunteering, and I had reached out to a few charities in Colorado that had events around Veterans Day or around Memorial Day specifically. And I went to these directors of the events, and I said, Do you have anything in your event that honors fallen heroes? I would like to add value to your program at no cost. And I have fallen heroes that were from the state of Colorado that I can pass out. And all I want to do is share their story. And just if one more person remembers this soldier and this hero, then they haven't truly died yet. I like to think.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that, and I made a lot of friends, and it was a lot of fun. And I was meeting these charities that were doing such amazing things for their community. And then I meet the pageant director, and she says, "Do you want to do a pageant?" And here I am, softball player in the Army. I'm not a graceful. If you know softball players in an Army, when we're not exactly. We can be rough around the edges sometimes. I mean, yeah, like you have to be. Yeah. So, anyways, I was like, "Girl, I don't know if you want me to be in a pageant." She said, she was like, "No." I explained, I'm like, I do bodybuilding. I like to lift. I don't know if I'm built. I'm not a runway model build. I'm stocky and big. And I was still like, even at the pageant, I'm like, I look like a linebacker compared to these other women. They can be really tiny. So so she said, "Well, in bodybuilding, do they care that you're in the Army, and do they care that you do this volunteer work?" And I was like, "No, bodybuilding isn't about that. They don't care who you are, where you're from. It's about, the package that you bring on stage." And she said, "Well, in pageantry, there are aspects of the competition that if you win money for your charity of choice." And I didn't know that up until that point. I didn't know that pageant girls have charity platforms. I had no idea. I thought, I was poor growing up, and my parents, I paid 25 cents for my glove from a flea market that got me into college.
Yeah.
That is like where I was at. I was like, not pageant girls. So anyways, I honestly, it might have been a little jealousy, but I used to kind of make fun of them. I used to be like, no, because, you have like the ones that you see on TV are the ones that didn't give a good answer, because everybody laughs. But I promise you, I said, okay, if I can win money for this charity, I'll give it a go. And then when I got there, Barry, I had not met a more successful, beautiful, driven, passionate group of women ever before in my life. I was blown away. And these women's platforms, they were not easy. This one girl, her platform was with battered women because she had been in a battered women's shelter. They are cancer survivors. They are foster children. These women have these stories that I did not know. I had no idea the kind of friendships I would take out of that experience. And I was really fortunate. I was I think there was, I don't know, 25 girls at the state pageant my first year. And I'm like, if you add together the hours and the impact that just us 25 women in this room right now have done with our community, show me another group of people who are, I'm not, don't get political or anything, but show me a group of 25 politicians that have made this kind of impact. Show me a group of 25 anybody within your state that have done this. I was blown away. So
yeah.
And pageantry wasn't necessarily about personal gain. Granted, yes, it's fun. Okay. Some girls like to wave, but I promise you, these girls wanted to win because they wanted to share that platform with their charity. And that's what it was about to me, at least that's why I was there. I can't say that, for everyone, but for me, I'm like, I just wanted people to know about fallen heroes.
Yeah.
And then connecting the dots again, I didn't know this until I started getting into pageantry, was out of all the places in the country to be stationed, Colorado Springs, where I learned, was the headquarters of a nationwide charity called Angels of America's Fallen, the number one charity in the country that sponsors children of fallen heroes. And they sponsor them with providing their funding for extracurricular activities, such as sports.
Wow.
So if you have this Gold Star child that now has one parent trying to provide a life, and you have this single parent, they're like, I can't afford to pay for football and all the equipment and all the travel, then that's Angels of America's Fallen steps in and provides that for the duration of that child's life until their 19th birthday.
Wow.
And I'm like, I met this couple, and I'm like, you guys are what I've been searching for. I don't know. It was just it was so crazy, and I've been able to build a good relationship with Angels of America's Fallen, and was able to raise a little bit of money. I mean, even if it's just sharing the platform, I don't know. It's really come full circle how just being true to yourself and doing just a little extra. I've read people really define success and significance differently. And, that work hasn't necessarily made me more successful. I haven't made a dime. If anything, I've forked a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
But the significance that really hits in here for me has paid dividends. It's been so much better. I mean, the people that I've met along the way are just wonderful. So
yeah, and you've certainly impacted people, and that in itself is success. And
I never thought it would have come back around for work. Once my work found out, because of course they're going to be on board because it's their brothers and sisters' children, that they lost. And so I had no idea that pageantry and the Army would go so well together. Never in a million years, but the Army's really kind of jumped on the bandwagon. Like, they see what I see, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And they've given me a lot of time, and I was able to speak in DC to a women's leadership symposium in place of Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she got sick a couple years ago. I mean, the opportunities have been amazing, but I feel like it stemmed from me being true to myself. When you have the right motives, when your reasons for doing and pursuing a course are really selfless, and the doors open, but if it's all about personal gain, I'm telling you, people can see it. People can see it with you have like red flags flying above your head and you don't even know it,
Yeah. So I don't want this part to just fly over everyone's head. Did you understand that she said RBG could not be there? Ruth Bader Ginsburg could not make it. So they were like, well, you know what? Let's call Angie.
Can you believe that? I didn't know that at the time.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I had this email from this lady at the Pentagon, HQDA, the Headquarters Department of the Army. And she sent me this email asking me to speak. I mean, it was random. And I was like, is this a scam? It was at my work email. So I was like, I need to call, our cybersecurity and see if they can look into this. But what happened was the Army wrote an article. We actually wrote a couple at that time that made it. The article made it to National Army News, and like I said, I'm so blessed that the Army saw my vision, and so they did an article whenever I competed in the Arnold, and then so there were a few times that my articles had made it up that far, and so I was on their radar already.
Okay.
And so when RBG, she was set to speak, and she got sick. And I mean, a lot of us remember, I think it was initially, it doesn't matter why she got sick, but she wasn't able to make it. And this was a few weeks, maybe somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks out from the speaking engagement. And how do you replace RBG?
Yeah.
You don't, and so they're trying to find someone that they can afford, because I mean, RBG, she was already in the area. And they have limited funds and military funds, right? She's a person that I think they can have funding allotted for her. It's different than hiring a celebrity, right? Yeah. I think maybe that money comes from different funding.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this lady at the Pentagon, she said, well, how about this officer that she's come up on the radar so many times, and So they called me up, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was excited already as it was, but then
Yeah.
at the engagement, I mean, I met, the Undersecretary of the Army and some amazing people. I mean, there were generals from around the world that partnered with America. It was such an amazing experience. And then she said, yeah, I found out then. I mean, it was I am in no position to fill the shoes of RBG, but dang it, I tried.
Yeah.
I tried, and the girls loved me. I mean, I met some passionate women in the Army, and it was a blessing for me, more so than these girls will ever know. I hope that some of the girls that were there that day, I hope they can listen to this one day and just know how grateful I was that they took in the things. That was the first time, Barry, that I had ever really shared struggles, excuse me, struggles from my childhood. I considered what was my audience going to need to hear from me.
Yeah.
I said, the event that weekend had a theme, but I'm like, what does my audience need to know? How can I convince them? How can I teach them these things? And I just assumed women in the military. I said they need to know that we're in this together. They need to know that they can succeed. They need to know that they can balance their life outside of the Army. That the Army doesn't define them completely. That this is a part of them, but it isn't their entirety. Like they needed to know, like, I want to appeal to my soldiers who are going through some stuff, or the ones that didn't have a cookie cut childhood. I want them to know that, like, hey, I'm there with you. But the military is a beautiful family that can really make you into the person that you are capable of being, to ignite your greatness, per se.
Yeah.
And I wanted to reach out to that audience of women that day, and I was very grateful. It was a door that opened I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Again, that's an amazing feather in your cap, but just an amazing memory to have. And again, I know, knowing you, I know the gratification, see the sense of fulfillment that you get. So, like I said, the success may not be from a monetary standpoint, but it's from an area that's so much bigger because you're making an impact on people. So that's really, it's great to hear that story. There's stories that I'm getting today that I didn't even know. So
I know.
that is very cool.
We've
And
only had so much time. Every time we talk,
yeah.
Barry, there is something else that comes out.
Oh,
Like
yeah. So, we've kind of made the theme of this, the connecting the dots. And one thing I want to do as we close this out is I want to talk about, so in that quote that Steve Jobs said, he said that you must trust that the dots will connect in the future. So he said, you can't connect them moving forward. You can only connect moving backwards, but you must trust that they will connect in the future. So for me, that trust is vision. That trust is belief, and believing that the things that you've been able to do in the past, you're going to be able to continue to have that type of success in life. And the past experiences only give you that much more belief that you can do the things in the future. So just talking about the future, what are some of the future endeavors that you have for yourself?
Well, I call them wins in your pocket. When you have nothing in front of you, and you're like, I need to get out of here. Like, I have this goal that I'm going towards. You have to find the smallest thing and say, this is my lesson. This is the win. And I'm going to put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
And then eventually those wins in your pockets get bigger. And then that's how you start learning that you have the faith in yourself to continue going. You're like, these wins in my pockets aren't from nothing,
Yeah.
And you build momentum. And so where I'm at today is, I found it, again, very serendipitous, that another thing that Colorado Springs has is Army space. And so when I found out that was a thing, you don't hear about Army space often.
Yeah.
But the military astronauts that are on the International Space Station right now, those are Army astronauts.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I know. So when I found out that space was an option in the Army, I was able to get in over at Space and Missile Defense Command. This was a little bit before Space Command was stood up, which is a joint command. And then the Space Force was created, which are not the same things. I think people get those mixed up a lot. Space Force being a brand new entity in the military. It's a whole new branch. And so, whereas Space Command is a supportive, it's a combatant command, which is a joint command. So the commander of Space Command helps the commanders around the world with the support that they need from our assets in space. So I explain that to say, right now I'm in a hotel room in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. I'm doing a course the Army calls Captain's Career Course. Every officer, captain has to go through this, and I'm at the intelligence Captain's Career Course here. I was successfully VTIPed. We call it V. It's like voluntary transfer. So I should know the rest of that. But I am an Army space officer. Whenever I leave here, I will go into the space officer's qualification course back in Colorado Springs. And then when that course is complete, I'm slotted to take command of an HHC headquarters company of the Satellite Operations Brigade at Peterson Air Force Base. And so that brigade was intentionally put together a couple years ago with the intent that these are all the Army assets. They operate wideband, narrowband satellite operations for military communications. They operate those assets. So they're going to be wrapped together, and they were made into brigade to unplug and transition into Space Force. And their mission set had no earlier than October 2021 will they initiate that transfer. They will be. I'll be the HHC commander of that brigade. We will be the first Army unit to transfer into the Space Force, which that's never happened before. So it's not like we have a book to follow rules, which is fine. I mean, it's kind of cool because no one can tell me that we're doing it wrong. But my job will be to support that brigade commander and making his life in that process as easy as possible. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's got to be exciting. I'm excited for you, in regards to that. That's just a huge accomplishment. And like I said, when you think about this little girl from Phoenix City, Alabama, and at 50, where life is going to take you, but it's definitely been an exciting journey. And I just want to say thank you so much for spending some time with myself and my audience and sharing your story. And it's just been a real treat to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Barry. I'm so grateful and honored to be here. Your listeners, thank you for listening to this all the way through. I promise you, what I shared today, I really pray that it helps, and even if it helps one person kind of resonate with them and help them make a positive impact in their life, then all the work is well worth it. I do want to end with one thing, and I think this is a good lesson for us to share on here. Is throughout like my fitness life, people ask me like, "What's the best meal plan?" Like I'm like, there is no formula. There is no best course of action. It's doing your best one day at a time, and those wins build up. It's like, they're old saying like opportunity and preparation. Luck is when opportunity meets preparation. It's like luck. Luck is not pure luck. I mean, there are some moments where your paths cross, but you make the most of it. Like
Yeah.
you have to make the most out of every day and just be good to yourself, be true to yourself, Um, keep your head down. I promise. Next time you pick it up and take a look around, you'll have covered some ground, and I call it move the ball forward. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Angie. That was a valuable nugget. Many of my mentors always, talk about, success is just, working and grinding and hustling one day at a time and creating that momentum. So you're absolutely right in regards to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from Captain Angie Dimattia, Captain Greatness, as I call her. And again, I want you, if you're listening to this, to realize that there is the greatness in you. And yes, the struggle is real, but so is your greatness.
Ignite your greatness, take a leap of faith and you'll make it. Wanna live life to the fullest, you gotta be hardworking and patient. You got the fire within you, you got a dream that you should be chasing. Pushing through to the finish line and you got no time to be wasting, yeah. Ignite your greatness, take a leap of faith and you'll make it.